Hello guys, it is Gate of Theories here, and recently the brand new Pixar movie Soul has been released, and guys, it has just been an amazing movie. I'm sure all of you have seen it by now. If you haven't, make sure you go and check it out, then come back to this video as there will be major spoilers for Soul in this video. But anyway guys, today we are going to be looking at the very end of the film where 22, the character who we've all grown to love, finally decides to get her spark and travel down to Earth. However, we don't really know what this spark is, but there is a chance that we do know which character's soul 22 actually becomes. Now, we already did a video on this before, expanding on this idea, and we theorized which potential females from the Pixar universe could be 22. And if you want to watch that video, there'll be a link down below in the description for you, or you can go and click the card right up there. But the video, unfortunately, was beginning to get a bit too long just because of how many different Pixar characters there are, so we decided to split it into two parts. So here is the second part, because the movie in Soul makes it very clear to us that gender really doesn't matter. A soul can literally be whoever they want to be. As seen by 22, when she's in Joe's body, she may sound like a girl to us, to the audience, but when she's talking to everyone else, she sounds like Joe was a male. So today we are going to be questioning the potential male characters that 22 could have became. So let's get into it. But before we go any further, please make sure that you click the red subscribe button down below and have your notifications turned on so that you get notified every time we make a brand new video. So, as I said in the last video, it needs to be a character from around the modern era. It isn't exactly clear where Soul takes place in the Pixar theory yet, as there is moments of more modern technology like mobile phones, but also more less advanced systems such as using chalk and blackboard when Joe is teaching. So it's anywhere between really the 1950s and upwards, as in the Pixar universe, technology can be slightly a bit ahead of time. So that means we are looking at anything from The Incredibles, Toy Story, Finding Nemo / Dory, Ratatouille, Up, Inside Out, and Coco. So that narrows it down to any young male from the Pixar universe from those movies, including Andy from Toy Story, Sid from Toy Story, Dash from The Incredibles, Jack from The Incredibles, Russell from Up, young Carl from Up, and finally Miguel from Coco. So we don't know what 22's overall personality will be, and the film doesn't give us the exact sign to what the spark was for her to become a fully developed soul. However, since it came after her experiences from being down on Earth as Joe, we can have a pretty good guess at what it was. Firstly, let's get rid of some of the characters that are very unlikely to be what 22 becomes. Miguel from Coco is first. Now, he is, of course, obsessed with music. His idol is literally the most famous musician in all of Mexican history, Ernesto de la Cruz. We know from 22 traveling in Joe's body that they are interested in the wonders and beauties of Earth. However, there is one thing that they definitely aren't interested in, and that is music. Throughout the film, whether it's when they're looking at Joe's pathetic life in the soul world, or being in Joe's apartment and having to look at musical instruments, they make it very clear music isn't what they enjoy. The only times in the film where they may have a slight interest in music is when 22 sees the guy by the subway playing the guitar, and when one of Joe's students comes by and plays the trombone. However, I don't think this is 22 being interested in music, but rather in awe of the talent being a person can give you, since they literally say they hate music quite a lot throughout the film. Next we have Jack from The Incredibles. Currently we don't know what Jack's main personality is so far in the Pixar universe, and it's very hard to tell, as unlike Dash and Violet where their powers reflect their personalities, since Jack is young, he has so many different powers that it's hard to tell what his personality will be. 22 could be Jack's soul, however we don't have enough evidence or knowledge of Jack to back any of that up. Next we have Dash from The Incredibles. Now Dash is very excitable about the world, which could stem from the spark 22 has when they go down to Earth, since 22 becomes very excited when down on Earth. And not to mention, the times we see Joe's body running is only when 22 is controlling the body, plus the moodiness we see Dash getting into at the beginning of The Incredibles could reflect 22's moodiness for thousands of years in the great before Joe came. However, I just really don't see Dash being 22, purely based on the fact that Dash is a super. Now, we know 22 has been taught by all the great professors and philosophies in history, such as Albert Einstein. However, they clearly weren't interested in anything like that. And since the Hall of Everything has literally everything in it, and archery is literally classed as a personality trait to form a spark, to have a complete soul, I have a strong feeling that superpowers are also a personality trait that spark a soul, and we know nothing in the Hall of Everything interested 22, and that would have included superpowers. Instead, it was the natural beauties and wonders of living on Earth. Whereas Dash is very much obsessed and driven by his powers, he spends the whole of the first two movies always wanting to use his powers, which disagrees with what 22's spark would have been. Next we have Sid. Now, it just seems like an obvious no for Sid. Sid is very harsh and violent to the toys and the world around him. This compared to 22's delicate look at nature and the world, they just seem like complete opposites. So, now that we've narrowed it down, all of the upcoming ones could potentially be 22 for all we know. Firstly, we have Andy from Toy Story. He has a huge imagination, especially when he's younger, and literally builds worlds out of his mind, as seen at the beginning of Toy Story 3, where it shows us just the type of world Andy is imagining. Considering how in awe 22 is of the world and its natural beauties, Andy seems like a plausible choice for 22 to become. Plus, some of the more moody sides of 22 we see, especially at the beginning of Soul, is very similar to how Andy acts in Toy Story 3 before he goes off to college. We also know 22 is very delicate about the world around them, for example, carefully touching the leaves when they're in the autumn scene, and this is very similar to how Andy takes great care of his toys, and when one breaks like Woody in Toy Story 2, he is absolutely devastated. Next two are both from Up. The writer and director of Soul was Pete Docter, and he also wrote and directed Up, which gives it a higher chance of these characters maybe being 22. Firstly, young Carl. The biggest point to this is, of course, the depression that Carl faces when he loses Ellie after the first 10 minutes of Up. As always, Up makes you cry every time. And we see what it's like when 22 becomes a lost soul herself, in the end of the film, where she becomes very depressed and it becomes one of those big soul monsters. Now, this could easily be a hint to how later on in life, whoever 22's soul becomes, they could easily end up being depressed at one point in their life or not. We said young Ellie may be a possible choice for 22 in the last video. Again, link in the description if you want to go and check that out. And that could be very much the same for young Carl. However, it may be slightly less likely. Yes, Carl is very curious about the world around him like 22, and adventurous, which we see 22 is like, considering they always come to the Lost World and travel on the ships around it. However, Carl only really becomes adventurous and curious about the world due to being around Ellie. To me, at least, it doesn't seem like his spark was to travel, but instead his spark was inspired by Ellie later on in his life. However, much more likely is Russell from Up. Russell spends the whole movie simply trying to achieve his badge from Carl. He is very into the wonders of the world like 22, and Russell is an Asian American child. And at the end of Soul, we see 22 heading towards Asia, which means there's a very high chance they are the soul of an Asian child. Since Russell is Asian American, this gives him a high chance for 22 to potentially be his soul. But anyway, guys, that's the end of the video. Hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, make sure that you smash that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let us know down below in the comments section, who do you think 22 is? Do you reckon they turn into a girl? Do you reckon they turn into a boy? And out of these ones who we've just said right now, tell us down below all of your thoughts about who you reckon 22 becomes in the Pixar universe, because it's Pixar. We all know 22 definitely becomes one of the characters that we know. There is the potential of 22 also becoming the future character Luca from a Pixar movie that hasn't came out yet. That is a very high chance of that being the case, and when Luca comes out to it, we will definitely be making a video on that. So make sure that you subscribe for that, and as always, we've been here on Creative Theories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.